Today we're going to be talking about forced appreciation. This is something that I feel like isn't discussed enough in commercial real estate, and it's frankly exactly how we add value to commercial real estate. For those of you that don't know, my name is Matthew. I'm a commercial real estate investor and a broker based out of Southern California, and I buy commercial property all over the country. So what is forced appreciation exactly? Forced appreciation is it's simply you're intentionally increasing the net operating income. So commercial property is valued based off the net operating income divided by the market cap rate for that property. So by raising the net operating income, you are raising the value of the property. That simply. So you can do that through operations. You can do it through decreasing the expenses and increasing the income. The net operating income is simply revenue minus expenses. So you can either increase the revenue or decrease the expenses, or preferably do both, and as a result, you increase the net operating income, and as a result, you increase the value of the property. And the key is this works regardless of market appreciation. So the market could actually be going down, but you make the property worth more by increasing the net operating income. And it's the primary way to build wealth through commercial real estate is this forced appreciation. So there's two really types of appreciation. There's market appreciation and there's forced appreciation. When someone says, oh, the property is going to appreciate, they're typically talking about market appreciation, which means that the property over time, real estate tends to go up. What's the rule of thumb is, a couple percentage points a year, the market goes up. A lot of that has to do with inflation as it costs more to build and materials are worth more. Assets tend to go up in value, so real estate grows. Or what you see is cap rate compression. I mean, back to this equation, if you decrease this cap rate, value also goes up. So cap rates tend to compress over time, especially as a result of interest rates, lower interest rates, cap rates tend to go down. So, market appreciation generally is out of your control. It just happens over time. Properties go up in value. This is typically what people are talking about when they're talking about appreciation. You don't control it. The market just kind of fluctuates over time, and you kind of just take that ride with you and your property kind of take that ride along with it. Forced appreciation, on the other hand, means you're literally forcing appreciation. You can do it through increasing rent, decreasing vacancy. You can get your expenses under control, decrease your expenses. You can, put capital strategically in order to decrease your expenses or increase your revenue, like, watching your utilities more closely, bidding out your vendors to get cheaper landscaping, converting leases to triple net, which is one of the easiest ways to decrease your expenses as a landlord, is pass those expenses onto the tenant. And the biggest difference is it's fully controllable. So you can control this type of appreciation. You can't control market appreciation unless you're Blackstone and you're going to buy a whole neighborhood. But that's not what we're talking about here. So market appreciation is external factors like inflation, cap rate compression, and the overall economy. It's unpredictable and completely outside of your control as an operator. Forced appreciation, on the other hand, is created intentionally by increasing the net operating income through rent optimization, decreasing vacancy, decreasing expenses, just running the operations better. One is luck, one is execution. So if you want to be able to control the value of your property and really buy a property with a plan in place to increase the net operating income, decrease expenses, then you can go in and grow wealth through commercial real estate. So, TLDR, too long, didn't read, raise the net operating income. I'm going to go over some examples here on some properties that I've already done, I've already executed on, and how this worked. So as you can see here, this is a 10-unit apartment building. This is actually one of the buildings. It's a 6-unit, and right next to it was a 4-unit, but it was a 10-unit purchase. Purchased it as a package. Now, if you notice, these photos are actually the same photo, and that's intentional because I didn't actually do any improvements on the exterior of the building. The building looked exactly the same from when I was done to when I was started, which is very different than residential. When you're talking about single family homes, appreciation is typically done through renovating the property and making it a better home for someone in the future. In this case, you're making it a better investment for an investor that's going to come and buy it from you. So when I bought this property, it had a bunch of vacancy. The rents were really, really low. You had really bad tenants that were trashing their units, that had pets that were tearing the units apart. So I came in, I cleaned the units up, I actually put a swing in the back, which is probably only the major exterior upgrade I actually made. I put a swing in the back because we've got a lot of families and stuff that came in, little playground in the backyard. And slowly I started turning over the units and bringing tenants in that were market rate tenants. So market rents on this building were actually about $1,200 a month, but a lot of tenants were in there were paying six, 700. So, and their units were a mess. They were disgusting. So I went in, I cleaned up these individual units one by one, and then I took the rent to 1,200, which is what the area commanded. So as you can see before, the net operating income was 46,500, and multifamily in Dayton, Ohio, which is where this property was located, traded at a 7.75 cap at this time. Okay, so 46,500, my net operating income divided by my cap rate of 7.75. I purchased the building at $600,000. Then I raised the net operating income mostly through leasing. I also decreased the expenses, but most of it was coming through filling the vacancies and taking the rents to market. I took the net operating income to 64,000 over a 24-month period, give or take. It was about 2 years, maybe a little bit less. At the same cap rate of the 7.75, the building was valued at 825,000. So all I did was repair the building, lease it up, and it might have cost me anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 to do what I'm talking about. So you really need to, your profit and loss statement, your net operating income up at the bottom of that profit and loss statement really dictates the value of the property. It's not based on emotions like residential. It's not based on the economy or what really happens to the economy. So when the economy gets worse in commercial, this cap rate will tend to go up. Okay, which sounds counterintuitive, but if you divide 64,000 by an 8 cap, it's going to be less than the 825,000. So as cap rates go up, commercial property values actually go down. But luckily, in this case, the economy was relatively flat through this 2 year period. So I exited at the same cap rate. But even if the economy had went down and this cap rate went up and I had to exit at an 8, 8.25, I still would have made money on this deal. That's what I mean by forced appreciation. You can still make money regardless of market conditions. Now, obviously, if the economy completely tanked and the property traded at a 10 cap, I probably would have not made a lot of money, but you can still make money in forced appreciation even if the economy goes down. The economy goes well and goes up, then this cap rate would, what we call cap rate compression, which just means the cap rate would drop. And if the cap rate had dropped to a 7.5 cap, then I would have made more money than I anticipated. But typically, when I run my numbers, I assume the economy is going to get worse. So if I can make it money, if I can stabilize the property and increase the NOI enough that I can still make money even if the economy gets worse, I know I have a good deal. So this property, 2 years with about a $30,000 to $40,000 investment through cleaning the property up and renovating the units, I was able to take the value from 600,000 to 825,000. It's a lot more predictable than trying to flip houses. Trying to flip houses, you're completely at the mercy of the economy. You can try to run all the comps you want, but if while you're flipping a house, the neighbor next door sells at a really low price because they were in a rush, or maybe somebody passed away and their kids, buyer sold the property, then the property is going to be worth, your property is going to be worth significantly less because now there's a new comp next door that sold for significantly less. So this is a lot less emotion and a lot more just straight up math. So it's a lot easier to predict what your exit valuation is going to be. Here's another example of a retail property where I actually did some exterior improvements. You can clearly see the before and the after. So when I purchased this property, it had a net operating income of $22,580. This was an 8 cap. This is a small strip center in Wichita, Kansas. Purchased it for $280,000, traded at an 8 cap. And what I did is I cleaned up the property. I spent about $25,000 on this property. I cleaned up the exterior, obviously, changed out this piece of the roof here, painted it. I redid the parking lot, although this photo was before I redid the parking lot, but I did redo this parking lot, blacktopped it, and I didn't even switch out any of the tenants. All the tenants stayed. What I did is I converted their leases from gross leases, means the landlord pays water, utilities, insurance, taxes. I converted them to triple net leases. That means from that point on, the tenants paid property taxes, insurance, maintenance. They paid all the expenses. So all I did was convert the tenants from gross to triple net. And as a result, I was able to increase the net operating income by about $10,000, 9,420 to be exact, but about 10 grand. I raised it. And as a result, I added $120,000 to the value of the property. And I put about 25,000 into this. So I made about 100 grand in almost exactly 12 months. It took me to do this deal. And the reason I waited for the 12-month period, I probably could have done it shorter. But the reason I waited for 12 months is because if you know anything about the tax laws, your tax bill drops significantly if you hold it for 12 months versus 11 months. Once you pass that 12-month mark, you go into long-term capital gains tax, which is short-term capital gains tax. So quite simply, there were already successful tenants in here. There was a church, a hair salon, and an optical shop that were paying gross leases. Means all they did was pay their base rent, kind of like an apartment, where all you do is you pay one monthly payment. I converted those leases to triple net. They were all month to month when I purchased the property. So as soon as I purchased the property and I cleaned up the exterior, I told them, hey guys, if you want to stay in the building, we're converting everyone to triple net leases. So that means on top of your base rent, you have to pay another charge for the property taxes, the insurance, and the common area maintenance. Just by doing that, I essentially took $10,000 of expenses and I pushed that onto the tenants. I was no longer responsible for those $10,000 worth of expenses, and that was my increase in net operating income. As a result, I was able to sell the building for $400,000 12 months later. And that's pretty much it. That's forced appreciation. You're literally forcing the property to be worth more. And I'm doing the same thing. The same thing works on small apartment buildings, 4, 5, 6 units. And the same thing works in retail. Same thing works in industrial, works on $1 million properties, works on $200,000 properties, where you literally increase the net operating income, you stabilize the property. Now, to take this a step further, you can increase the net operating income, but what you could also do is decrease this cap rate. So how do you decrease cap rate? You decrease cap rate by making the property more stable. I don't want to dive into this too much, but cap rate is essentially a measure of risk. How risky is this investment? That's why if you have a Starbucks, it'll trade at like a 4 cap, a really low cap rate, because it's a very safe investment. And like I said, as you drop the cap rate, the value of the property actually goes up because it's in the denominator. Okay, so by getting long leases on a property, long stable leases with good tenants, you have now decreased the cap rate of the asset. So a real sharp operator will do both. They'll increase the net operating income and decrease the cap rate of an investment in order to really skyrocket that asset right there. So it's simple, and then once you understand it, it really unlocks what's going on here. So my original plan coming out of college was just to purchase a house a year, rent it out, and then live off the cash flow. But then 2020, 2021, I learned about this forced appreciation, and it really unlocked everything for me. I realized that you can go buy an apartment building, take the rents to market, and then as soon as you do that, the property is worth significantly more. And then you can exit, take that money, and put it into another deal. So I'm trying to buy as much value add real estate as I can right now in this market, especially because the economy is weak right now. So I'm able to buy stuff at a huge discount with weak operators that have really, really bad net operating incomes, vacancies, they have too much expenses. I clean the property up, I increase that net operating income, I maybe decrease the cap rate by getting better tenants, longer leases, and now I can have a massive exit that I can go and roll that equity that I just built up into another deal and do it again, rinse and repeat. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really wanted to break down a forced appreciation. I feel like not enough people talk about it. Too many people, when they talk about appreciation, they're talking about market appreciation. And forced appreciation is really the wealth building tool here in commercial real estate. Anyway, again, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I will catch you guys on the next one.